Was this a murder? Right?
Right.
Did George and 4 men enter the Smith stateroom, and did all 4 leave like they said? Or did one stay behind, since the neighbor, who was a police officer, stated numerous times he only saw 3 walk by? So, was it an accident? I mean, maybe a heavy night of drinking? He just fell over the balcony. Because in one of the photos, the chair was against the balcony railing. So they have a little table and 2 chairs, right, that is against the sliding doors that go into the cabin. Mm-hmm. But one was against the railing, so people think maybe he was just like, you know how you sit on railings and smoke or something? I don't know. And he maybe thought the railing was a lot thicker than it was, and he was just sitting on the railing and his legs were like in the chair.
Lost his balance and
fell over. It's really hard because if only one, these little guys are small, these little Russian American men.
Yeah.
They're small. And like I said, this guy's 6'2" and 220 pounds. And if you haven't helped a drunk friend, you're pretty much working with dead weight.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to push someone over a balcony, can it be done? Of course. Is it going to be hard? Probably.
Yeah. Did they even verify that the blood was even his?
Yes.
Okay.
They did verify that. So, it's really hard to say. Jennifer hasn't given a lot of interviews. It's really awkward. And it is sad if it truly was accidental. It's sad that there is that rift between, the family and his wife. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's a number of possibilities, right? Maybe he did fall over and they just freaked out and took advantage of the situation, tried to go through all the stuff, find the money after he fell over and get out of there or whatever. Maybe that's what all that was. Who knows? Well, they know. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, but... And so Jennifer, I'm a little confused about where she was. I mean, she was in that room, right? In the bedroom, right?
So she was found at 4:30 a.m.
But
she was passed out drunk. She was blacked out drunk.
But where?
Just somewhere.
On the lounge area.
Oh, in the lounge. Okay.
Yeah,
all
I
right.
stated that.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch that part. All right.
And then they went to the room. No one was there, so they went back and wheelchaired her back to the room.
Okay, got it.
Because she was that fucking drunk.
Got it.
Yeah. So whether or not she was faking it or was blackout drunk, way after supposedly, that he fell over, got pushed, whatever, all of that is still...
Is there video evidence, of her in the lounge?
Oh, good question.
Passed out in the lounge?
Well, I mean... I'm trying to think. The last video footage was of her that I recall reading about was leaving the casino. The last video footage of him was in the casino as well. But again, you have state employees, cruise ship employees, who said they found her.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know why they would be lying.
So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty evident that she was really drunk.
And then just
so
passed out.
for the family to be so mad at her over it, I don't see her being culpable in this.
Unless there was something before when they got married or
right,
like bad blood beforehand.
Right. I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Nothing that I could find was like any ill blood between them. They really liked her. She was studying to be I believe a 3rd grade teacher or something, really sweet, person.
That's so
and
weird.
They were perfect. I mean, I just think this is my thoughts on it, right? I could totally be wrong, and that's okay. We're not going to know, right?
Yeah.
I think he probably might have just accidentally fell over. As sad as it is, right? When something happens to a loved one, we want to point fingers to somebody else. Right? It's an easier way for us to get through our pain rather than, okay, he was just being a dumbass.
Yep.
I think it was he accidentally fell over, and I think she probably has alienated herself from these people because, I mean, this was their only son, love of their life. I mean, they have a daughter, but you know what I mean?
Right.
Carry on the name. I think because she was so blacked out drunk and cannot remember anything, she holds a lot of guilt. Mm-hmm. And that probably shut her down. in a way for her to deal with things.
Yeah.
And maybe she isn't dealing with things or talking about things in the way people expect her to be that morning crying widow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but then there's the trouble of the other guy's stories not matching up. Right? Oh, we ordered room service.
Right.
Well, there's no record of room service. They failed polygraph tests. Now, obviously, those aren't, binding, but still, it's still evidence that they're not exactly being truthful.
And you're absolutely right. But in a lot of different articles, I mean, it kind of shadily pointed fingers at Jennifer being involved in this, you know what I mean? But I think it was just a series of unfortunate events.
Yeah.
That's my personal feeling. I mean, if it truly was a murder, I hope that soon evidence does come up and gives the family some peace of mind and rest, and the guilty party gets what they deserve.
But with the FBI closing it, it's been over a decade.
Exactly.
Not likely.
Right.
Yeah. And one of them Rusty is in prison, and that's just because he was smuggling oxycodone.
Oxycontin?
Oxycontin. Yeah. And actually, it was Greg. Now that I think about it was Greg Rosenberg, and he was only serving a 3-year service sentence in Florida prison. But when he was asked if he could kill anybody, and he just said that he doesn't have the heart to kill anyone. But that's also the same person who was gangsta. Yeah. So anyways, the family is offering a reward, $100,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the persons or person responsible. If you have any information, the number is 1-844-651-1936.
Well, good story.
Yes, thank you, Carol, for being a patron and for the recommendation.
Yes.
And
Thank
let
you.
us know what your thoughts are. I mean, because there's a lot of ways the story could go.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting too? I mentioned that she was flirting with one of the employees, and you're absolutely right. The guy's stories don't add up either, right?
Right.
But you also have a bunch of young kids drinking hardcore absinthe, right? Late night. Who else knows what they were doing? I'm just saying your stories and things can happen. If you've ever tripped balls on absinthe, it's called a green fairy for a reason.
Right.
But they said, one thing I wanted to point out is they mentioned the employee. His name was Lloyd, and I just didn't bring him up because it really wasn't relevant to the story, because all cases, there was no proof of it. But they said that after Jennifer stormed out, Lloyd went after her, right?
And he's the one that she was flirting with?
And he's the crew member.
Yeah.
Also, Josh said when they were in an elevator, he saw that Lloyd put his hands around her, and he just thought it was very inappropriate and really weird. She's a married woman, and here this guy is draped over her and stuff. But the accounts of this guy following Jennifer is only by these 4 men. No one else had any witness of it, and they all say, no, Lloyd was still here. He was still here. And his alibi, and why I decided not to bring him up, because he does have a legitimate alibi. He was with his girlfriend and accounted for later that night.
Gotcha.
So that they were trying to point maybe Lloyd went over there, you know what I mean? So when we're looking at alibis again, and if their stories hold up, so there's something else that doesn't match up as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's a lot of whodunits. Where were ya? Polygraph fails.
Yeah. It's definitely shady.
And the blood that was found on the bed sheets is really so teeny. And if you think, I mean, obviously I will post photos, but to give you two a visual right now, it looks like the watch links, when your watch pinches you when you have the links.
Yeah.
It was just 2 little small lines of blood.
Oh, okay.
That is strange, that's for sure.
And it was George's.
Huh?
Did they test
It was
that blood?
George's. Yes.
Blood, okay.
Yeah, all the blood found was George.
Okay.
There was nothing else.
But that could have been from something else. Yeah. He cut himself shaving or whatever, right? And, yeah.
Putting on a watch.
Yeah.
Well.
So I don't know. Yeah, it could have been old blood and it was just there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow.
But it's sad. And then like when you read, different articles and piece things together, because there's never one article that gives you everything. You have to read different news reports and stuff and gather all of that. It seemed like really it was just within minutes that this loud thud was heard and reported, and from the time that they entered the room with Jennifer. So like had they maybe like looked around the room, they might have looked outside the balcony, or
right,
like, I don't know, oh, it's really a brisk night, we should close the balcony door. Yeah, I don't know, just it was really sad. And a lot of people are like, well, had they gone into the room and looked around? But I'm like, there was no reason for them to go into the room and look around.
Right.
The husband wasn't there, they put her to bed. That's it. And coming back to the point where you were saying, and the neighbors were saying it sounded like the room was being trashed. I've seen photos, okay? It is not trash. It just looks like you come home, from vacation, or even just here. You come home and you take off your top and throw it over the chair, and maybe there's some pants, like...
Okay, so somebody was probably rummaging the
but it was nothing.
It
was nothing overly bad. Like, it just looks like a couple people have been living in vacation mode and haven't picked up. There was like some food wrappers open, clothes were sprung, but not like thrown. They were just like draped over the chair and stuff.
Right.
So where the crew members were saying that they looked around and nothing looked off, it makes total sense. Even Jennifer says when she woke up and looked around the room for George, like nothing looked off to her. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? Eric's in deep thought over here.
I am inclined to think that the Russian gentlemen have something to do with it.
Whether it was an accident, whether it was...
Right. They know what happened to him.
Right. I agree with that. But I also think it could have been an accident and that they just want to get credit for it, but not go to jail.
I don't know.
It's an interesting story.
Yeah, it is.
Again, I do hope there is some closure on it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks again, Carol.
Yes, thank you, Carol. All right, you guys, say bye.
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 Hello and welcome to the Murderific True Crime Podcast, featuring your host, Bernadette.
Welcome to Murderific True Crime Podcast, and I'm your host, Bernadette. This week I do not have a guest, which is weird. Once in a while I like to record by myself, because my friends are getting sick of me. This is Murderific number 17. I'm super grateful to be doing this. I love what I'm doing. I hope it shows in the content. If you like my podcast, please just tell one other person who might tell another person and then another person. Every 3 weeks, I'm getting more people to listen, and that's amazing. The Murderific podcast is presenting Daniel Camargo Barbosa. He is also called the Colombian Sadist or the Mangrove Monster. Those are big names. He was born January 22, 1930. He was a Colombian serial killer, psychopath. It is believed he raped and killed at least 150 young girls in Colombia and Ecuador through the 1970s and 80s. And yes, I did say that right. At least 150 girls. He was one of South America's scariest serial killers, serial rapist, pedophile. He is also top 3 in body count for serial killers in South America and probably everywhere else. He is up there in the top 5 serial killers of the 20th century to now by the number of sheer victims. 3 of these serial killers in the top 5 operated in Colombia. So maybe not go there on vacation. Don't bring your kids there. But also, there was no active government or a government that had justice. So you could pretty much get away with murder. And some of the other serial killers in the top 5 are Luis Garrido, who had 138 to 150 victims, and he targeted young boys. Of course, our subject, Daniel Barbosa, 150. And then there's Pedro Lopez, whose body count is fucking 300 to 350 young girls. I'm not even joking. I don't know how that's possible. Dr. Harold Shipman is accused of 250 homicides in his physician's role. He was a British killer. And of course, there's Giovanni Brusca from Italy. He has 200 victims, but he was a member of the Sicilian Mafia. So yeah, those body counts are nuts. Barbosa's early life. He was born January 22, 1930 in Colombia, the Andes. He was born into a wealthy family. Daniel's mother died when he was a child, only 2 years old. His dad was emotionally distant, and he was also overbearing. His father was a local businessman, and his father told him from an early age that he was useless and a lost cause. His stepmother was very abusive, and she punished him by dressing him up in girls' clothing. And she doted on her stepdaughter, which is weird. So she disliked him, but liked his sister. She liked to forcefully address him and hit him on his bare butt with a bullwhip. So he was beaten, basically. And he had to wear a dress, which is horrible. His schoolmates made fun of him because of this, and he got bullied. Camargo was very intelligent, and he did well in school, despite all of the abuse. His IQ was 116. In the early 1940s, Daniel was sent to an all-male Catholic boarding school and did well academically. His family got hit economically during La Valencia. Camargo had to drop out of school and get a job as a door-to-door salesman. So basically, Colombia got a recession, and his rich family became poor. Being a salesman taught Daniel how to speak to people and how to convince them to get their money or to let him into their homes. In 1957, Daniel had a union with a woman named Castillo. He convinced her to rent a house together after a few dates, and they had 2 children. But in 1962, he fell in love with another woman named Esperanza, aged 28, whom he planned to marry, but he found out that she was not a virgin. And later in their relationship, he found her in bed with another man. Daniel became fixated and angry and was very disappointed that he was not a virgin. He told her that he would only stay with her if she helped him find young virgins to have sex with to take her place. So this guy was obviously quite the manipulator, but no matter how manipulative someone is to convince you to help get young virgins, I don't understand that. With Esperanza as Daniel's accomplice, they lured young girls into their apartment under false pretenses and drugged them with sodium seconal sleeping pills so that Daniel could rape them while they were unconscious. Daniel was first arrested in Bogota on May 24th, 1958 for petty theft. Taking advantage of a distraction, he just walked out the same day. He returned home and resumed life. So he just walked out of the police station because no one was paying attention. So obviously there's no justice system going on at all in this country. He resumed life with his partner in crime and committed 5 rapes. The fifth child that they raped reported the crime in 1964 and identified both of them. Daniel and Esperanza were arrested and taken to separate prisons. Daniel was convicted of sexual assault on the last girl, the fifth girl, on April 10, 1964. The judge gave him 3 years in prison as a sentence. Daniel was grateful for the short sentence, and he vowed to change his ways. A new judge, however, got control of the case and decided Daniel should get 8 years instead, and Esperanza got 3 years. He served his whole sentence of 8 years and was released, which is still an incredible small amount of time for raping 5 girls. After he got out of prison, he swore to himself that no one would live to inform on him again. In 1973, he was arrested in Brazil for being an immigrant with no paperwork. Due to the delay in sending Daniel's criminal paperwork from Colombia, he was deported and released with a false identity. He returned to Colombia and started working as a street vendor, selling TV monitors. At age 44, one day while walking by a school, he kidnapped a 9-year-old unattended girl whom he found attractive, bringing her to an abandoned building. He raped her and then murdered her so that no one would be able to report the crime. This was his first murder that he was caught for. He was suspected in the deaths of 80 women and girls. So again, I apologize for the lack of information here, but because this is a Colombian case, we don't have access to all the information because these places try to cover up when they have serial killers. And plus, the language barrier, I got all the information that I possibly could on this case. So he was suspected of killing 80 women and girls before he even got caught for his first murder. Daniel was arrested because he decided to return to the crime scene to recover the TV screens he left near the victim the next day on May 3rd, 1974. Daniel was convicted of the rape and murder of the 9-year-old girl. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison, but his sentence got reduced to 25 years, and he was sent to prison on the island of Gorgona, Colombia, on December 24th, 1977, which is off Colombia's Pacific coast. On November 1984, Daniel escaped from the island, known as the Colombian Alcatraz, so he had been in prison 7 years. After studying the ocean's currents and reading books about navigation, he used a primitive boat and escaped from the island. The authorities assumed he wouldn't make it across the shark-infested waters, so they just told the press that he had been eaten by sharks. Daniel was the first prisoner to ever escape, and he was very much alive. He eventually arrived in Ecuador. He traveled by bus to Guayaquil on December 5th or 6th, 1984. At this point, Daniel began to rape and kill every chance that he could. On December 8th of that December, he abducted a 9-year-old girl from a city called Quevedo in Ecuador. She disappeared. Obviously, he killed her. One day later, a 10-year-old girl also disappeared. From 1984 to 1986, Daniel committed a minimum of 54 rapes and murders in Guayaquil alone in 2 years. In 2 years, he raped 54 people and murdered them. The police actually thought that it was the work of a gang, not even comprehending that one man could have killed so many people. They even thought that maybe it was a white slavery ring. The police thought that somebody was stealing all of these people, that it must be a gang or a slavery ring, because obviously one person can't kill 54 people. Daniel slept on the streets homeless. He was reselling ballpoint pens in the streets. Sometimes he would sell the clothing or small valuables that belonged to his victims that he killed. Daniel's modus operandi. Daniel selected young, lower-class girls who were alone looking for jobs. Girls as young as 9, as long as he found them attractive. He would pretend to be a foreigner and ask for help to find a church on the outside of town. He would show them large sums of money and offer them a reward for their help. And of course, being in such a poor area, these girls thought that they were lucky. He would go into the woods with them looking for a shortcut. And then, trigger warning here, don't listen, do not listen if you get scared. Or you don't want to hear about rape. He would rape his victims before strangling them, and he would stab them if they resisted at all. One woman hit him with a rock on his head during an assault, which enraged him so much he decapitated her on the spot and threw her head away. One victim was gutted with her lungs, kidneys, and heart extracted. There's a lot of anger there. He would leave the bodies in the forest to be picked clean by animals. He always carried a second shirt to change into after the murders, and he would pee on his hands to get rid of the blood. Oh my God. 2 of his signatures were post-mortem undressing. So after they were dead, he would undress them. So he's probably a necrophiliac. And another thing he always did was he would taunt the victim's relatives on the phone. Sometimes, if a victim had phone numbers on them, he would call the families and taunt them with details, such as scars, moles, or tattoos that were on their children. Daniel was arrested by 2 police in Quinto on February 26, 1986, just a few minutes after killing the 9-year-old girl named Elizabeth Telps. Police approached him because he happened to be acting suspiciously in the area. He was carrying a bag with him containing the bloody clothes. Oh my God, I can't even say this out loud. The bloody clothes and the clitoris of his latest victim, and a copy of Crime and Punishment. A search of the nearby area yielded the freshly butchered body of a young girl. He was taken into custody and moved to Guayaquil, and he gave a false name, of course, Manuel Solis. But he was later identified by a previous rape victim who was lucky enough to escape. Her name was Maria Alexandra Velez. Daniel Camargo confessed very calmly to killing 72 girls in Ecuador since escaping from the island prison. He led police to the dumping grounds of his victims, not found yet. While he gave his confessions of horrible crimes, he showed absolutely no feelings of remorse. After raping his victims, he sometimes hacked, slashed, crushed the girls with a machete. The bodies had been dismembered. He said he killed virgins because they cried, and this gave him more satisfaction. The killer explained he killed because he wanted revenge on women's unfaithfulness. He hated women for not being how he thought they should be, which is ridiculous. Men don't always act like I think they should act. And I've been cheated on in relationships, and it's definitely not a reason to go out and cause a bloodbath and to murder everybody. Like, that's a dumbass excuse. He said, quote, "I hated prostitutes. They disgusted me. I feared venereal diseases and their ravages. I wanted pure virgin women," therefore explaining his sexual urges for 9-year-olds. In June 1986, Francisco Cordero, a journalist for the newspaper, managed to arrange an interview with Daniel. It was difficult to get the interview due to police blocking all access to Daniel. Daniel himself wanted a large amount of money before any interview. The journalist pretended to be part of a group of psychologists that were allowed access to the prisoner, allowing him to ask questions without making Daniel or anyone else suspicious. Camargo was convicted in 1989 and sentenced to 16 years in prison, the maximum prison sentence for murder in Ecuador. While serving the sentence, he converted to Christianity. He was imprisoned in the same jail as Pedro Lopez, the monster of the Andes, who also raped and murdered more than 300 girls in Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. Like, what is up down there? You just do whatever the fuck you want? Crazy. In November 1994, Daniel was murdered in prison by a nephew or cousin of one of the victims. It depends on what you read. So someone who was related to one of the victims he killed, which probably wasn't hard to do because he killed so many people, killed him. He was 64. The man forced Daniel to his knees after saying, "It is the hour of vengeance." His name was Nogara, and he shanked Daniel 8 times, killing him, and then cut off one of his ears as a trophy. Nogara showed the ear to the guards. No one claimed Daniel Barbosa's body, so he was buried in a mass grave in Quito Albayton Cemetery. And though it's short, that is the absolute whole story of Daniel Barbosa, who killed 150 women and girls. Such a sad story. Thank you again for listening to Murderific. Please subscribe to Murderific True Crime Podcast on iTunes or where you listen to podcasts. Please leave a rating and an honest review for Murderific True Crime Podcast. Please support Murderific by going to Murderific on Patreon and contributing. It will help with website and production costs, and you'll also be helping a small business to continue. Your contribution, even $1 a month, will keep us going. The links to contribute are also on murderific.com. Follow me on social media, on Twitter as MurderificBPC or Instagram at Murderific Podcast. Thank you for listening to the Murderific True Crime Podcast. Until next time, we'll be executing podcasts one crime at a time.
If you're going to do something, do it well. And leave something with you. Leave a sign to let the world know that you were there. Have a good day.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Murder, Myth, and Mystery. My name is Larissa, and I've got Eric.
Hello.
And Mary here.
Hello.
Hi.
She's just staring at Eric, giving me a dirty look because I didn't realize we had started.
Mm-hmm.
I was dicking around.
Mary's over here just saying random words and stuff. It was kind of weird. Yeah.
Sorry.
Hey, welcome.
Hi. How you guys doing?
Good.
Swell.
Swell, that's a new one.
Not really, but
Oh, I guess maybe I just don't listen to you.
yeah.
Oh.
I'm forgettable.
No.
I get it.
No.
I definitely get it. Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's good to be here.
I missed
yeah.
you guys.
Yeah. We
Happy 14th day of Halloween month.
Halloween month.
14th day of Halloween month.
I gotta say, today, for some reason, felt more like October than any other day this month so far. I don't know if
It's probably because the leaves are finally starting to change
Yeah.
around here, and it's been friggin' cold.
Love it.
No, it's a little too cold for my liking. It was 26 degrees outside this morning when I took the dogs out to go potty. So
Yeah.
that's too cold.
No,
No, it is. It should not be able to drop below 45.
but when you're drinking your coffee in the morning, it just feels so nice and warm because it's all cold outside. It's so nice.
I'll let you live in your little delusional world. That's fine.
Bailey's has their pumpkin spice liqueur.
Ooh,
Add that to your coffee.
Wow.
yes, please.
Getting basic white girl up in your coffee there. All right. A basic white girl with booze. All right.
Isn't
I
that
said
still?
with boobs. I'm like, yes.
With boobs, yes.
Good segue. Make sure to examine your boobs.
Yeah, it's
Breast Cancer
Tatas.
Awareness Month.
damn right.
Take care of them.
Yes. And take care of your loved ones that are dealing with all of that
Yes.
too. Yeah. Man, that's a hard thing to go through. I think everybody, all of our listeners either have been directly impacted or have family or friends that
Your
have been
mom,
directly
my
impacted.
stepmom.
Exactly, that have been impacted by that. So please take care of yourselves.
One of our listeners and sweet person who is our friend's mom, Andrea. Yes.
Yep.
She's had it and a survivor.
Yep. She kicks ass. She's
Yeah.
Wonder Woman. Damn right.
She's
so
badass.
yeah.
Don't mess with her.
Damn right. So take care of yourselves, people.
Funny story, because we're very open about our lives. I was having chest pains back on Thursday, and so we went to Instacare. I know it wasn't a heart attack or anything like that. It was actual breast pain. Very weird. Like, I couldn't breathe. I couldn't lay down, side sleep, anything. It was horrible. So we went to Instacare, and the nurse had me put a robe on, right? The doctor came in, and he's like, okay, well, he was concerned it was cancer. And I'm like, well, I get a mammogram every year. Since I've had a breast reduction, I've had to get them at a really young age. And I had just had one in May, and everything was kosher. And he's like, okay, well, let's just take a look. And he's like, I'm going to undo your robe. And he's like, he looks back to Eric, and he's like, so I'm just going to touch, feel your wife, your spouse, your significant, he's like, your girlfriend. Like, he didn't know what to say. And I was like, oh, I don't know him. And Eric's like, yeah. He goes, the lady in front said, you guys were really busy, so they were just doubling up on patients.
No, you
And he
didn't.
looks at me, and I was like, oh, well, I mean, that's true. But he also said he was here for emotional support. And he is just staring at us. And he had the most worried look on his face. And then Eric started laughing, and then the doctor got back. He did something really funny and made us laugh. He got back to us, and I go, oh, you can add to the chart a new pain, laughing. But anyways, his face was priceless.
That's awesome. That's Mary. That's Mary for
That's
you.
Mary and Eric for you.
Yeah. Hey, we got a new patron.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a dear friend of ours,
Yes.
Miss Andy Erdman.
Hello, Andy.
Yes, she's our new $20 patron. Andy is mommy to sweet little Jinky the raccoon. And we've met Jinky. I love Jinky and all of the animals down at Wild Wonders, where she volunteers her time.
Yeah, we went back there a couple months ago and posted pictures. Hi Jinky does have an Instagram account, so I'm going to give him a shout out. And his IG handle is HIJINKIE. And she posts super cute videos and photos.
Of course, they have all sorts of fun little critters down there. That's where I met my kinkajou, Dobby, and of course the fox, Skitters, and they have a few red foxes, actually.
And she got a couple new ones.
Yeah.
She was telling us about.
They got a couple coyotes and all sorts of critters down there. Yeah,
That's so cool.
It's a neat place. Yeah, and they don't adopt them out or anything like that. They are a rescue.
What is it called again?
Wild Wonders.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, great little organization. So, yeah, really, really cool.
And they have an IG account. It's Wild Wonders Utah.
Yeah, we got some art we did a little fundraiser thing with them. Attended a fundraiser for them, I should say, and they did, animal art and all of that. And so we got some fun animal art.
Yeah.
It was really neat. Great little organization, really well run and everything. So it's nice to see the amount of love that goes into it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so
Very cool.
Yeah. I also want to give a quick, I guess it's a little belated, slightly belated birthday shout out here to Sean Hendershot. So Lilac wanted us to give you a little birthday shout out.
Happy birthday.
Do it, Mary. Come on, all the way. You've already you've committed here. No.
No. Happy birthday, Sean.
Happy birthday.
And
Happy birthday.
thank you very much. I did want to say I really loved your guys' pictures that you posted with your unknown pervert hoodies.
Oh, yeah.
It looks so good.
I need to get one of them.
Yeah, that's up on our apparel site on the murdermythmystery.com if you're interested. There's a bunch of different designs that are up there, guys. Some of you probably haven't checked it out in a while.
They have the 80s off the shoulder hoodie.
Yes.
Oh, that's my favorite. I love
I
that
love one that says weirdo.
Yes.
Speaking of our site, so when you go to murdermythmystery.com, all our episodes are there, but there is 2 store links. There's one apparel, because that goes through a third party, and then we have the merch store, and that's where you can get the pilsners, the wine glasses, koozies and whatnot. We are having a sale in the merch store, and if you spend $15 in the merch store, then choose a decal, so your total will then come to 20, unless you have more. But anyways, if you spend 15, add the decal in, it'll come to 20. Put in the code free decal, and that will take the decal off, so you'll get that $5 discount.
This is one word.
Free decal. And we have new teacups up. Remember, there are a few sayings you get to choose from, so you can personalize them a little. And we have Utah raw honey sticks up. Listed.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
That's
So
awesome.
that is going until the end of October.
Yes,
To be able to get
to
that
the end
free
of
decal.
October. Free decal. And then you can choose, like, you know, the different colors, or you can get the sparkle, or there's some really cool designs on there.
Yeah, they're fun. So yeah, if you've been thinking about it, now's the time.
Holiday.
That was beautiful.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know why I'm so singing. I'm so sorry, listeners. Edit all of that. If you want to keep anyone, edit it.
This is a loyalty test. So
Well, they failed.
Not to scare you or anything. So the Halloween card exchange closed on Friday. So thanks everybody for that who signed up.
Yes.
Please make sure that you're getting your cards or whatever you choose to send out by the 21st. Please make sure that you know that the cards are the only thing that is expected. If you do choose to go above and beyond, thank you. On the 28th, we're going to have a post where you can share what it is that you got.
Yes.
Yay.
And post what you get only into that thread. Anything outside of it will be deleted with a little note to tell you either wait for the post or post there.
Yep.
If it's up.
boom.
I wanted to bring up answering questions when you ask to join the group. There are 2 questions you have to answer. If they're not answered, we leave your request sitting there for a couple hours, because for me, I don't know, whatever reasons you didn't spend the 10 seconds in answering them. We will check to see if you've answered them. If they're not, then it will be declined. So just keep in mind, if you want to join the group, do take the 10-15 seconds to answer them. They're really 2 simple questions.
Yeah. Also on that note, as another reminder, please do not invite people into the group through the invite option on there. You're welcome to tell people and say, hey, check out this podcast, maybe check out the page or whatever. That's great. But yeah, don't just invite people into the group. We will decline those. So I'm not going to go on a soapbox about it again. Just, leaving it at that.
Nice.
All right.
Also on Sunday, don't forget about the Sharing Sunday post that would be up there. All of the small businesses, if you happen to have a small business, you can post on Sunday the link to your store. And don't forget to support your local weirdos.
Yeah.
I almost botched
You
that,
were
guys.
killing it there for a minute, and then
I know.
Fucked it up.
way
Yep.
to go, Larissa.
Well, hashtag support your local weirdos.
Boom,
Yeah.
there it is. Yeah, we have a lot of amazing people. Like, someone makes tip jars. Like, you wouldn't think of that. That's pretty cool. I think
awesome.
that's
I saw that.
Allie,
I was
if
like,
I recall.
I was like, what an interesting business
yeah.
model. I've never
Different
thought about that.
sizes, and they're very cute.
Yeah, they have things
knitting.
with lights and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
Someone's
knitting and the
doing
crochets.
crocheting.
And, oh, man.
Lots of good stuff.
So good.
A lot of artists, and yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, very cool. So do come in on Sunday and share your posts. Yes, you can share your sisters, your brothers' posts, your friends' posts. If it's a small business, share it. We want to support local this year. I think it's really cool.
Right. Just make sure that you're putting it into that specific post that we put up on there. Anything outside of that, again, will be deleted with a little message saying, hey, put it in our other post here. So, yeah.
With that voice.
With that voice. At least you'll read it in that voice now. Hey, put it in that post there. Hey. All right. Should we jump in?
Heck yeah, let's go.
Do it.
All right. So I've got murder. Let's do this.
Do it. Do it. Do it.
Now, do it now.
Wow.
Do it.
All right. Now, there's a reason most of you have never heard of Garfield Heights, Ohio. It's a quiet suburb of Cleveland where you would want to raise your family. Nothing really crazy happens there that would warrant putting it on the national radar. But that all changed for a while back in 1964, when one of the most gruesome murders ever in that area happened. Keep in mind that the torso killer had struck that area some 30 years earlier, and the same coroner worked both cases, and he referred to this one as the worst murder he had ever seen.
Oh, dang.
Wow.
Okay.
It was December 28th, and life seemed good in the Jaros family household. Thaddeus Jaros and his wife Eleanor were going back to work, while their two daughters, 12-year-old Carol and 16-year-old Beverly, were still enjoying the holiday break from school. They lived in a small 2-bedroom house in which Thaddeus and Eleanor's room was on the main floor, while the two girls shared a room up in the attic. You know when you're watching a movie and the teenager has some impossibly large bedroom and you think, who the hell has a bedroom that big? Well, this was one of those bedrooms.
Oh.
To be fair, it was a sort of living area with a nook where both girls' twin beds were located.
Kind of like the attic in Home Alone.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah. The room was big enough that it fit 2 full-size dressers on one wall and a desk against another wall, 2 chairs to just lounge in, and a TV on wheels, all with plenty of room to spare.
I love the idea of TV on wheels. Yes.
Because the room was in the attic and the beds were in a nook, both beds had a slanted ceiling over them to accommodate the slope of the roof. Beverly was a bright and creative young woman. She was a quiet but pretty girl who loved classic art and literature, and her favorite pastimes were writing poetry, visiting museums, and volunteering at the hospital. She also had a boyfriend, but the worst trouble they got into was kissing.
Oh.
So basically, she was the teenage girl that makes every other teenage girl look terrible in comparison, right?
Yes.
But she was also a very cautious, if not paranoid person, and she had good reasons for that. Earlier that year, in July, somebody left a package in the Jaros' mailbox, simply addressed, To Bev. Inside this gift-wrapped box was a sterling silver bracelet and a ring. Her boyfriend denied that it was from him, and this really worried Beverly. She held on to the gifts but never wore them. The next month, another gift box was left for her. This time it was left on the back porch and contained a cheap brooch and another bracelet. In the weeks leading up to the Christmas holiday, the family would receive about 10 calls a day from someone that would immediately hang up once they answered the phone. Not long after the second gift was left, Thaddeus came home late from work one night, only to find a young man standing on their front lawn staring up at the girl's window.
Ew, creepy.
Yeah.
Oh, creepy.
Thaddeus got out of the car to confront the man, who took off running. He tried to chase him down, but the guy was just too quick and got away before Thaddeus could get a good look at him. After this incident, Beverly started getting very nervous. She would triple check all of the house's locks each night and make sure all of the blinds were closed. She also purchased a sharp brass letter opener that she kept on her nightstand for protection. Whenever she would go anywhere, she would always make sure to call one of her family members to check in and let them know that she arrived safely. Most 16-year-olds are trying to gain their independence from their parents, but Beverly Jaros now wanted to be as close to her family as possible.
Understandable.
On that morning of December 28th, after Mr. and Mrs. Jaros had left for work, Beverly and Carol made the 2-mile walk to their maternal grandmother's house for a visit. They arrived at their grandmother's house at about 10:30 in the morning and enjoyed a nice visit while Beverly did her grandmother's hair for the day. At around 11 o'clock, she made a couple calls to her friends, Barbara and Margie. They made plans to meet up later. Barbara would stop by Beverly's house at 1:30, and together they would then walk down to Margie's house. So, at around noon, Beverly left her grandmother's house to head back home while Carol stayed behind. While walking away from her grandmother's place, the neighbor saw her walking in the cold weather with just a cardigan to keep herself warm, so they had their 18-year-old son drive her home. When they got to her house, nothing seemed out of the ordinary, and the young man immediately went back home after dropping her off. Beverly went in the house, turned on the radio by the doorway, and set her stuff down on the table. Not too long after, the phone rang, and Beverly answered it. The caller asked for her father, so she explained he wasn't home at the moment and wrote a note by the phone that simply stated, "Steven Stankiewicz called. We'll call back later." At about 12:40, the phone rang again. This time, it was a local jeweler calling to say that her mother's necklace was now repaired and ready to be picked up. She called her mother at about 1 o'clock to let her know about the necklace, and the pair chatted for a few minutes before Beverly told her that she should probably go get changed since Barbara should be there soon. At around 1:10, her grandmother calls to chat, but Beverly abruptly tells her, "I can't talk to you right now, Grandma. Barbara is here," before hanging up. Barbara's mother dropped her off at Beverly's house at around 1:20. Barbara first went to the side entrance where she noticed the inner door was open, but the storm door was locked. She also noticed that the radio was playing extremely loudly. After yelling into the house for Beverly with no answer, she then went around to the front door and rang the doorbell. Still, nobody came to the door. So she grabbed a magazine from the mailbox to pass the time while Beverly finished getting ready. While she was waiting out there, Barbara heard a loud thump come from the upstairs of the house. It sounded as though somebody had knocked something large over, like a dresser. After waiting for about 15 minutes, she got tired of waiting around and went home. Barbara tried calling Beverly several more times from her home, but there was no answer. She also called Margie to see if Beverly had gone over there without her, but Margie hadn't seen or heard from her since the phone conversation that morning. After trying to reach her throughout the afternoon, Barbara finally called Beverly's grandmother at about 4 o'clock to see if she had heard from Beverly. This alarmed the grandmother, who in turn called Thaddeus to let him know about the situation. Thaddeus left work immediately and rushed home. When he got there, he noted that the side door was still open and that the storm door was unlocked. This was extremely uncharacteristic of Beverly since she was so paranoid about her potential stalker. He also noted that the back door and its storm door were also open and unlocked. The radio was still playing at full volume, but nothing downstairs seemed out of place other than the doors and the radio. He immediately ran upstairs into the girl's room, where he found Beverly laying dead on the floor between the two beds.
Oh, wow.
Shaking and horrified, Thaddeus approached her and placed his hand on her lower back before running downstairs to call the police. When the Garfield Heights police arrived at the house, they took one look at the crime scene before realizing they were in way over their heads and called in the Cleveland Police Department for assistance. Beverly's body was laying face down on a throw blanket that was usually kept at the foot of the bed. She had been stabbed about 40 times, mostly around the neck, chest, and shoulders, and back, using a sharp blade that may have been her letter opener. But this was not the cause of death. She had been strangled to death using clothesline cord that had been cut into 3 20-inch segments, with loops tied in either side. One of the ropes was still under her body and partially draped over her shoulder, while she held another piece in one of her hands. There were nicks in one of the ropes that indicated that the killer was stabbing her with one hand while strangling her with the other.
Oh, wow.
She was nude from the waist down, and her sweater had been pulled down to the so the neck of it was around her waist. Her blouse had been ripped open, and her bra was shoved up, exposing her breasts. The coroner would later determine that she had not been raped, but it appears that the killer had probably intended to do so, but things got out of hand. She had defensive wounds on her hands, and both cheeks were slashed deeply, one from ear to chin and the other from ear to throat. There was also a 9-by-6-inch hole punched in the sloped ceiling, indicating that there was quite a struggle. A police dog was brought in and led the police out the back door and into the street, but then lost the scent at that point. A neighbor told the police that they saw a man in his early 20s walk down the Jarros' driveway at around 1:45 and get into a parked car before driving away. Now, there's some questions surrounding this statement because both Barbara and her mother stated that there weren't any cars parked out there when they had arrived. Speaking of which, it appears that Beverly was being murdered while Barbara was waiting outside. Besides the loud crashing sound she heard, the storm door was locked when she got there, but unlocked when Thaddeus got home.
Wow.
The killer most likely turned the radio up so as to muffle any noises coming from inside the house. Also, that name that she had written down, her father had no idea who that was. Stankowitz? Yeah.
Oh.
Creepy.
No idea who that was.
Oh.
A number of fingerprints as well as some bloody palm prints were obtained from the room, but they were not helpful in narrowing down any suspects. Over 300 people were interviewed, and many of her male friends volunteered to take polygraph tests, in which they all passed, including the young man that drove her home from her grandmother's house. He was questioned, but had a solid alibi. Nobody was ever charged with the crime. Thaddeus kept the downstairs of the house exactly the way that it was that day for 30 years, just in case a jury should want to see the layout of the home. Though he did clean up the girl's room and fix the hole in the ceiling, Carol reluctantly moved back into the room after a period of time. With the advancements in DNA testing, the case was reopened, and in 2014, the DNA samples that were able to be collected were sent to a lab for testing. At this point, the police have narrowed it down to 2 primary suspects, both of which still live in the area, but they still don't have enough evidence to formally charge anyone. Crime Stoppers of Cuyahoga County is offering a reward of up to $2,500 for information that leads to the arrest or indictment of the person responsible. Callers can remain anonymous. The number is 216-252-7463.
So does that mean that the DNA that they got, it wasn't enough to be able to...
Right. They can't say specifically, which person it was on there, but yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a bloody mess in the room. Blankets thrown out all over the place. I mean, it was obviously a sign of a pretty good struggle that had happened in there. Like I said, the one blanket that was at the foot of the bed, she was laying on that one. It was soaked in blood. And then there was another blanket that was usually kept on the floor, and that had been shoved underneath the bed. I'm guessing in all the struggle or whatever got moved over there. Yeah, and then the big hole in the ceiling wall, whatever you want to call it. It's like a teepee kind of thing, if you're picturing it that way. Big hole in the wall there, from all of that had gone down. It's just it's really creepy, but it sounds like it probably was that stalker, and that he was Stan Stankiewicz or whatever, right, that had called earlier and left that message saying if her dad was home. It's just really, really, or Steven Stankiewicz, excuse me, really just. It's sad. It really is. She just had this bright future. She wanted to be a teacher when she grew up and all that. Like I said, she was volunteering at the hospital. She was doing their records for them and stuff like that. Always spent all this time at the museum. Her mom ended up publishing some of her poetry later on.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. Her poetry apparently was it was very teenager. It was quite dark. A lot of her stuff, death was a common theme in a lot of her poetry, apparently. Yeah, even though she was such a sweet girl, but she was also very quiet, and she was very hesitant to let new people into her life. But once you got in, then you're golden, right? You're best friends forever, kind of thing. So you had to build that trust. So
that's me.
yeah, but it's just such a weird story, but so violent.
Yeah, it's
so sad.
Well, it definitely seems like a crime of passion for sure.
Well, I wouldn't call it crime of passion. It was first degree murder. Crime of passion is more manslaughter than anything else.
Well, just the amount of stab wounds that she had in her, and it was very personal.
Oh, very personal. Yes. Oh, yeah. Definitely very, very personal.
It wasn't just a random.
No, no. Like I said, there was no rape, but her body looked like it was supposed to have been raped, I guess. That's a terrible way to say that.
Staged.
Staged. It could have been staged that way, or it just, like I said, it could have been something like he was going to, and then it just all went nuts and just left. Yeah, he decided to leave or whatever. So I don't know, but whatever it may be, it's 40 times. All around the neck and shoulders and back, and that didn't kill her. That was the strangulation that killed her. Yeah,
you can't see it, but I'm trying to figure out how
the ropes. He had the 2 loops on either side of the rope, so it sounds like he was holding on to both ends of the loop with one hand, or of the rope with one hand, and strangling her, and then with the other hand, stab, or whatever. Just just all over wherever they could.
Jeez.
Yeah, some of them were in groups, on her back. There was 3 or 4 patterns of groups of 3 stabs, so stab. Somewhere else, stab, somewhere else, stab, kind of thing. So obviously kind of go along with that struggle, trying to just hoping that it would, maybe stop her. I don't know. It's hard to say, but she's still fighting back through all of that.
Jeez.
It's so sad, but then when the parents had left her room that way for so long.
Left the whole house.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the house.
Yeah.
So in case they wanted to come back to the case.
Yeah, the room he cleaned up and actually he fixed the ceiling and re-wallpapered that one portion with the same style of wallpaper that they had before. So, I mean,
Breaking
for
my heart.
Carol to move back in there, it just had to be so hard. Yeah, to go back into that room where something so horrifying had happened. And Carol is still leading that fight. Both of the parents have since passed, I believe. But, yeah, Carol is still out there, diligently trying
Carol.
to, get this case solved. So, yeah, it's a sad story.
Good job.
Thank you.
Did really good.
Thank you.
I hope they are able to close it.
Yeah. It's with the technology we have now, I think it's just a matter of time. I don't think it's a matter of if. I think it's a matter of time.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. What do you got for us then?
So I've got myth.
Good.
If you guys don't
If you don't know how the
get
show
it.
works.
Yeah.
Don't know the layout.
And I am talking about mermaids.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was so worried that you guys had already done this, but I
We have, but
scoured
let's
through
hear
it. You haven't.
No, we haven't.
That was mean.
I know.
Well, considering that the first time, I think back in August, when you were like, wait, I know I've done this one before. And I'm like, no.
Eric freaked you out.
First day and I fuck it up. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking about thingamabobs and whatchamacallits or whatever the hell. I don't
Yes.
You got it this time.
Well, actually, so I was going to say that my favorite Disney movie of all time still and will always be The Little Mermaid. The idea of an underground or underwater world that is completely different from ours, but is very similar. They go to school, they've got family, all of that. It just blew my mind as a kid. I was just like, a whole new world. But that's the wrong Disney movie. So,
know. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is the wrong
Part of your world.
yes.
Yes.
I actually wrote that down. I'm like, wait a second.
Whole new world. And they got the carpets to fly down there. Yeah.
The genies.
Yeah.
And probably my favorite part was that Ariel could sing. I loved it. Every
My
song.
favorite villain is Ursula.
Ursula's pretty great. Yeah. Did you ever read the book?
No.
Oh, the book is so fucked up. I love
Hans
it.
know.
Christian Andersen's dark, man.
I need to read it.
It's good.
It's not long. It's a really short story.
I need to.
But yeah, it's public domain, so you can find it for free. It's good.
Well, I mean, speaking of, this isn't the only story that has a mermaid in it. There's Harry Potter, where those mermaids are not, they don't seem very nice.
They are not very kind.
Their skin and their hair all match. It's gray and sort of green and spiky teeth.
Yeah, they looked almost
and-
alien, yeah.
Yeah. But then also in Peter Pan, and my favorite version is Hook. They've got the beautiful women that they don't sing, they don't speak, and their kiss seems to give you air to be able to breathe under the water.
Sure.
Just like the Splash
Yeah.
movie.
Ah, yeah, Daryl Hannah.
I love Splash. When I saw it when I was a little kid, I wanted to wear my bras on the outside of my shirts when I grew up. I thought it was so cool. Like, when I get boobs, I'm going to wear my mom's like, no.
No, you're not.
No, you're not.
No, you're not.
But yet she does now.
I know. It's coming back.
She is right now, guys.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's great.
So anyway, bra, look at it. Hello, they're expensive and they're cute. You damn well better look at it.
All right, back on track.
Sorry.
I don't know where to go from there.
Yeah.
Show me your
Anyway,
bra.
moral of the story is read the Hans Christian Andersen story because it is dark and it will make you think twice about the Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah.
Well, the earliest stories were coming from Assyria, circa 1000 BC. I hope I said that right.
Yeah.
The goddess Artigatis loved a mortal man who worked as a shepherd, and she unintentionally killed him. She was so upset, she jumped into the lake and took the form of a fish. But the waters would not conceal her divine beauty, So she took the form of a mermaid.
Oh, so she's a hot fish.
Yeah, hot fish.
Hot fish. Oh my god.
There's also the Greek myth of the siren, which are half bird-like, half human. But then in the Christian era, a lot of the mermaid stories were changing to half fish-like, half women, half human, women, human.
What?
Yeah.
You lost me there. Hold on. What?
Yeah.
Back up.
So around in the Christian era, the stories of the mermaids were not sirens. They were not half birds. They were half fish.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. You completely lost me there for a second. I'm back. Yes. Yeah, we had this debate with Pam about the sirens, about what they really were, whatever. Yeah, that was a little confusing on there. Like, are they mermaids? Because
they were birds. They were half birds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
they just happen to live on the water, on the rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just in case nobody knows, mermaids are generally described as the top half as a human and the bottom half with the tail. They're often associated with death and misfortune, luring the
weary sea traveler.
Thank you. Into either weary waters or to death.
Because they're mean and rude.
Yes.
Before I forget, my other favorite half mermaid is Sud. And she is part mermaid, part blobfish.
Oh God, from SNL. Yes.
It's an SNL sketch.
Yes.
But when you were just describing like the beautiful Peter Pan ones, it made me think of her because there's some sailors that get rescued and they have two beautiful mermaids and they're like, and Ariana Grande was one of them. So super cute, right?
I remember that.
It was Ariana Grande, and it was what's her name, Black Widow.
Scarlett
Johansson. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Kate McKinnon came up as the black, but the sailor's like, "Woo, I can't wait to see what I get." And she's like, "Hey, what's up?" Like
the big old blob face,
slimy,
nose,
and everything.
everything. Yeah,
okay, great. Sorry.
Oh man,
that is a great one.
Yes. So we've already talked about similar related mythical creatures. So the Selkies from episode 12.
Yes.
Forever ago.
Way back.
And the Kappas from episode 115.
Holla.
Yep.
Yeah, those rapey turtles.
Stop.
I can't even.
I can't even.
Anyway,
there have been some famous people in history that have encountered mermaids. One of them being Christopher Columbus. January 9th, 1493, says that he saw a mermaid off the coast of Africa. In his journal, he stated, "They're not half as beautiful as they were painted." But then, well,
Christopher Columbus got a lot of shit goofed up. So,
well, it is said that he saw a manatee. And
I was gonna say.
No, it's a manatee.
Yeah.
So, duh.
I personally think manatees are adorable.
Yeah,
okay?
how dare you judge manatees?
Yeah,
they have
sea
great
cow is a bad
personality.
name. Okay,
but if you're comparing them
wonderful
to
personality.
And you guys have heard now the snort. That was awesome.
Oh my God. Oh, but save the manatees.
Yes, save the manatees.
Eric's mom's car has a "I break for manatees" bumper sticker.
Yeah, they live down in Florida, man. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's manatees, and there's another animal that's related to the manatee that is another one that would commonly get mistaken as well.
Florida listeners, let us know.
I can't remember what it is, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. In 1614, John Smith had a run-in. This is... Yes.
John Smith's another historical asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you give us some credible?
Yeah. No credible sources, just Chris Columbus and John Smith.
In seeing mermaids, guys. Mermaids.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So there was a phrase that I kept seeing, but there was no origin of where this came from. But it was supposed that John Smith said, "Swimming with all possible grace near the shore. The upper part of her body resembled that of a woman. She had large eyes, rather too round, a finely nose, a little too short, well-formed ears, rather too long, and her green hair imparted to her original character by no means unattractive." But
Okay,
Sounds
but you're
like an
still judging
alien
her
now.
looks.
He's going with some weird alien fish.
But from below the waist, the woman gave way to a fish. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it was a dream. Like,
You didn't have any description of her lower half.
just that it gave way to a fish.
Okay.
Was this
Yep.
before or after he kidnapped Pocahontas? I don't- it was
After.
after? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
1614. History buffs, help me out here.
She had a rough life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should talk about her.
Post
I don't know why.
John Smith. Yeah.
I mean, it's not a murder, myth, or mystery. I mean,
No, it's just depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah. She,
I don't know about you guys, but
tale, I guess.
every
she
time
died not too long after going to Europe.
For some
Yeah.
reason, I thought you were going to say not too long ago.
She lived like 400 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. She didn't make it too long. Well, first of all, obviously diseases and
Yeah.
stuff like that, I think is what
Right.
it was. But
It was.
yeah. But still, it was pretty miserable.
Okay, Eric and I are going to shut up now.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry.
My history nerd couldn't help. Sorry.
I did ask for a history buff to chime in, so
Yeah, you're married to a history buff. You're well aware of this kind of stuff. So.
I'm still trying to get him to come on the show, and
Yeah.
every time he's like, I want to come listen. Actually, he really wanted to come to tea with the listeners, and I was like, you've only listened to mine, but can I go? And I'm like, no, not now.
He's a listener.
A reader.
A reader.
Viewer.
A
You
Should've
viewer.
come.
The form and legends behind the mermaids are different depending on where you go. So, obviously, with any myth, no matter where you go, it's going to be a little bit different. For example, in Brazil, they call them Ira, Iara,
Yara.
yeah, or Lady of the Waters.
Ooh, I like that one.
Ooh,
Yes.
That sounds hot.
She was originally meow. Today is weird.
It is. Yeah.
Totally.
So she was originally known as a water snake, but later became an immortal woman who would lure sailors into her underwater palace and make them her lovers. So anytime that there was a man that disappeared or an accident, she was blamed.
It was that fish hussy.
Yeah, yes.
Dumb.
In New Zealand, their version of the mermaid is called a makehau.
Sure.
Yes. It's described with a human head, a body of a long fish, and extremely long tongue, which is blamed for destroying canoes and swallowing large schools of fish.
So this one's just pretty much all fish except for its head.
Yeah.
Which it's got a
Really long
human
tongue.
head with a long tongue. Excuse me. Long tongue.
I need to see a photo. Of
No,
the-
I can picture
or
it.
drawing.
Yeah.
I can picture it perfectly here, but wow. All right.
Yes. In France, the Melusine is described as a willful maiden who is out to revenge her father on behalf of her mother, only to be punished by her mother with a serpent's tail. This is actually the print that you see on the Starbucks logo.
What?
Dun, dun, dun. Yes.
That's the French one?
Yes.
I had no idea.
And then lastly, in Norway and the Orkney Islands, the Finn folk, I loved that. The Finn folk are shapeshifters of the sea.
Oh.
They alternate living on land and the sea. They abduct humans for their spouses, but are considered more slave. You might get away from them, you might escape from them by throwing silver at them.
Silver.
So if you're ever in Norway and you come across somebody that you think is a Finn folk, just throw silver at them and they won't take you.
And they'll be like,
That
they
sounds like a
prefer
scam.
coins, but it does sound like a scam. Yeah. Yeah. If you see somebody being attacked, throw silver.
Yeah.
I'm going to start a rumor now.
There have been some relatively recent stories of mermaid sightings. There was a report in 2009 that claimed that a mermaid was seen off the coast of Israel. One of the first reported people that reported it said that they saw a sunbather on the beach, but then when they got closer, it noticed that it had a tail and it jumped back into the water really quick. Other onlookers said that he or she, they didn't say,
They.
did some tricks off the coast and then disappeared into the night.
Oh, so it's a prostitute fish.
Yes.
Different kind of tricks.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
A sex worker.
A sex worker. You're right. You're right.
Shame on you.
That is shame on me. I did not mean to demean their profession. All right.
The town's tourism board is offering $1 million for anyone who can provide a picture of this creature.
That's wow.
Did you
Yeah.
say 1 million?
They're setting themselves
1 million.
up for some trouble there with Photoshop these days.
Yeah.
Right there.
I'm working on it right now.
Right.
But so far, nobody's come forward.
Wow.
Still available.
All right.
And then in 2012, Animal Planet aired Mermaids, The Body Found. It was the format of a documentary, but it had fiction details all in it.
Come on, Animal Planet. You're better than that.
So, of course, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration
Noah's. Yes.
yes, received enough complaints that they had to issue an official statement denying the existence of mermaids. Way to go, Animal Planet.
Animal Planet, stick to kitties and puppies.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I think the general consensus is that most mermaid sightings are of, manatee / porpoise or whatever
Right.
animals that, since they like to be near the surface or sometimes just under it, and they tend to be friendly with people.
Yeah.
So I could see it. Yeah, and manatees have very unusual features anyway, and they're just so adorable.
yes.
They really are.
However, I still dream about being Ariel.
You got the red hair going on.
It's not like her red though.
No, hers is like legit red.
I could try to sing, but nobody would. Anytime my nieces and nephews come over, we put that movie on, and I'm just like, "Shut up, everybody! Shut up! Shut up!"
Jackson actually really liked that one when he was little too.
Yeah,
It's catchy. It's a good story.
It's very good.
The original it's wow.
I'll read the book and then watch the movie right after to pick myself up.
Do that. Yeah. I need to read the what's it called, the Snow Queen or the Ice Queen or whatever it is that Frozen is based off of, the Hans Christian Andersen story that's based off of. Apparently very, very different as well. But
Ooh.
yeah,
Because I actually, don't hate me, guys, I didn't like Frozen, so I might actually like that.
I love Hans Christian Andersen stories.
Yep.
Yeah.
There is, trying to think of what it's. Oh, goodness. I picked it up at the library. It was a series. It is a TV series, Shelley Duvall's Bedtime Stories.
Oh, from back in the 80s,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
but they did a Little Mermaid. I actually really liked all of those. I binged them.
Well, good job.
Anyway.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah.
Sorry we kept interrupting you.
Yeah.
No, I loved it.
No, mermaids are, they're classic, because I mean it's kind of the whole thing. There's two things about living here on Earth that humans have dreamt about for all the time, and that is being able to fly and living underwater.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's a common thing that's been in so many stories for thousands of years, right? I mean, whether it's Icarus flying too close to the sun or mermaids or whatever that
Didn't
may be.
Aquaman have mermaid-like creatures? I mean, obviously they had underwater sea creatures, but I thought there was mermaids in them.
I don't remember mermaids.
I'm going to be honest. I
There
only
was
paid
those
attention to
weird little
Jason.
naiads or whatever.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Okay, I'll start.
All right.
But good job.
So wait, do you have mystery?
Yeah. Murder, myth.
Gotcha.
Mystery. Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Awesome. Good.
Rock solid.
Oh, goodness. My mystery today is a suggestion from a friend / listener / brother from another mother who I constantly want to smother to death with a pillow because of all of his terrible puns.
Brother from another mother, smother. Another? Oh, wait, we already said another. All right. Anyway.
Boom.
Anyways, so thank you, Tony, for the great idea.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. Tony.
The theory of how we know the way the world is today started with farming. Farming led us to planting roots and settling down. Settlements led us to religion, which led us to temples, and temples led us to cities and civilization, right?
Right.
And here we are today.
Voila.
But today's mystery shakes up that theory.
What was that again, Eric?
We're still in our Hollywood patron episodes.
That was kind of a old Hollywood / Skeletor thing going on right there.
I love Skeletor. Today's mystery comes from southeastern Turkey and is just 6 miles away from Urfa. It's the world's most startling and important archaeological finds of our time. Known as the Göbekli Tepe, which translates to Potbelly Hill. I think it's so cute. It's a series of massive carved stones built in the 10th millennia BC, making it over 12,000 years old. Now, these stones were carved and arranged by early Neolithic humans right after the end of the Ice Age. People who had not yet designed metal tools. It predates the invention of agriculture, so any sort of farming at all, and it also even predates pottery. And just to give you a little more perspective of how old this find is, it predates Stonehenge by 6,000 years.
Whoa.
Yeah. The agriculture one, I mean, it's like 7,000 years or some odd like that, 6 to 7,000.
So farming was discovered 500 years after.
Oh, okay.
So from this.
All right.
The Göbekli Tepe was first discovered in 1963 by University of Chicago and Istanbul University anthropologists. And it was briefly examined and dismissed as they assumed it was an abandoned medieval cemetery, which I still think is pretty cool, but I mean, if that's your...
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, 1,000 years old. Come on.
Yeah. Blah.
Lame.
I guess if that's what you're looking for all the time, then you're like, meh.
Another old cemetery.
Another medieval cemetery. Well, in 1994, Klaus Schmidt, who was a German archaeologist, was out in the area doing research on another site and decided to visit the hilltop where all the stone markers were that he had read about. He says the first time he saw the round hill, he knew it was a man-made hill and knew it was way more than a cemetery and that it was extraordinary. In a later interview, he said, quote, "Within a minute of first seeing it, I knew I had two choices: go away and tell nobody, or spend the rest of my life working here." A year later, in 1995, Klaus and some companions came back and started their excavations, and they uncovered the first megaliths. And sorry, I'm kind of losing my voice, you guys. The megaliths are T-shaped pillars made of soft limestone, and they are 5 meters tall or 16 feet and 5 inches high, and they weigh between 7 and 10 tons each.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
The 1 acre excavation covers less than 5% of the site. Using penetrating radar and geomagnetic surveys, they have discovered 16 other megaliths and 200 pillars arranged in circles and rectangular rooms, and this covers 22 acres of land.
Wow. Cool.
Now, the T-shaped megaliths are believed to be stylized depictions of human beings, since they have faces, arms, hands, and loincloths. The smaller pillars are decorated with elaborate carvings and drawings of animals. The animals represent single units or showing them in an actual, complex scene. There's lions, foxes, vultures, wild boars, and snakes, just to name a few, that are on these pillars. And they're also very 2D, so they're very flat, or there's 3D, and I was showing Eric some of these photos, and they are bonkers.
It is insane, the level of detail on these things. There's no questioning what it is that they're carving on some of them. It is there's one that's a scorpion, and you're like, yep, that's a scorpion. There's no well, it could be this. No, that's
Wow.
It's scorpion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And this cat
it's
one.
cool.
Oh, the cat one is super cool. At least I think it's a cat. It is. That's one of the 3-dimensional ones. So cool.
Yes. There's even a real cool carving of a therarianthrope, which is a hybrid human-animal creature. In this carving, it is believed to be a vulture.
Oh.
That's the one.
Yeah.
So now Klaus believes that the site was, quote, the first human-built holy place, end quote. And many others believe that it does have some sort of religious importance and it wasn't used for domestic purposes. And they believe this because so far they haven't found any cooking hearths, houses, trash pits, or even farms to suggest that anyone ever settled down here. However, they did find a lot of bones, 100,000 animal bone fragments to be precise. They were able to identify tens of thousands of gazelle bones, which made up 60% of the findings, but also there was boar, red deer, sheep, vultures, cranes, ducks, and geese. Now, many of these bones exhibited cut marks and splintered edges. So very cool.
Yeah.
Other findings have been stone hammers and blades, floors made of terrazzo and flints, and then there's these massive stone jars big enough to hold more than 40 gallons of liquid.
Wow.
Jeez.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, many think the location was used as some form of sacred place, and actual recent findings within the last couple years point to this as well, and why the area is now being called the Skull Cult.
Oh.
So far, 3 skull fragments from 3 different human beings have been found. Through different types of analysis, researchers have found that the skulls were covered and altered after death. The skulls have been defleshed, modified, and even painted. There was deep incisions that were repeatedly carved into the skulls to create grooves that ran up the forehead and toward the back of the head. Researchers believe skulls may have been suspended by a cord that wrapped around the head and passed through a small drill-like hole at the top. Many of the small statues that have been found, they are also missing heads. And they can tell, like, the head didn't fall off or something like that. It was actually carved out of the stone without a head.
Right.
And then there's also the pillar carvings that show headless people and skulls being carried.
Weird.
There are others that believe that this place was actually used as a social meeting place, mainly used by the hunters and the gatherers of the area. Some even thinking it was kind of a meeting place to meet up and breed outside your little group. And
to spread the DNA around a little bit here.
Yeah, exactly. And to share information, like share, you know, what you've been hunting, how you've been hunting it, how you cook it, you know, things like that. Whatever it was used for, the Göbekli Tepe craftsmanship and the engineering of this project is thousands of years ahead of its time, and even the art and carvings are so advanced. It has everyone scratching their heads on how they did this. And yes, aliens have been mentioned. I mean, it is a huge project, and without modern day tools, I just can't even imagine how it was done, and even to like start thinking about, you know, how long it took them to do it and complete it.
Oh, yeah.
I will post some really cool photos of the place, and it's been on like Nat Geo's Alien show. I don't know what that's called, but Nat Geo's done a couple different shows on it. It's been in the Smithsonian's magazines.
Wow.
So there's a lot of great photos, and I mean 22 acres, so who knows what else they're going to find, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then the interesting thing was the pillars are straight up, and then why I kept saying T is there's another stone on them on top of these pillars, so they're two separate. And so why the first people thought that it was a medieval cemetery is the hill was covered up, and they think that these people did it. like they had built this and then they just stopped using it because farming came along and whatnot.
Oh.
So then they started to fill this hill in. And so when it was finally discovered in 1963, and why they were just so dismissive of it, is because it's just a hill with these little T's, or like stones sticking out that resemble graveyard markers.
Right, right, yeah.
So that's why they were just kind of like,
Until you start digging down, and yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is really cool because it dates back before the Mesopotamian times. That's our cat. That's Fergie. Mm-hmm. You can't talk trash about Mesopotamian around her.
Yeah.
Nope. It dates back before the Minoan civilization.
Close.
I said it right. What is it?
Minoan.
Minoan.
Uh-huh.
I knew I was going to say it wrong. It dates back before the Minoan. So, anyways, I can't say it, but I know what it is. That era flourished around the Bronze Age.
Oh yeah, the Bronze Age. Yeah, several thousand years later. Yeah,
which was 3000 BC, and then it also, was before the Mayans, who had this amazing.
Well, yeah, and that's the Mayans aren't that old.
Yeah,
they're in the last 1500 years, but yeah, it is bonkers to think about it. So we're talking 10,000 BC here, and like you said, this is fresh out of the Ice Age. Hunter-gatherers. There's no such thing as civilization yet.
Right.
And they got a group of people to come together to build this insane network of temples.
Yeah.
People didn't work together back then. You found a mate, you lived on your own with your mate and your kids or whatever, and
that's it.
That was it. Yeah, you hunted for your food or gathered your food, whatever, if it's berries or whatever else. Yeah, you didn't come together and say, all right, you have a job, and now you have a job, and you're doing this, and you're doing that. There was no social structure like that.
Right.
It's insane to think about it. When you go that far back, I mean, yeah, like she said, pre-Mesopotamia, Assyrians, all that stuff, it's nuts to think of all of that. It's so cool.
Yeah, no, it's mind-boggling. Like I said, when we were looking through the photos, I have no idea how it was done, just with using stone hammers.
Yeah, no metals. Yeah, the Bronze Age hadn't happened yet. So, yeah, using stones. And it is the details that are on...
Seriously,
these are
the
done.
art is mind-boggling.
And to think that they did this with stones is just incredible.
But that's why they say, in a couple articles I was mentioning, they did say that the humans, like, I didn't see any of, it was mainly focused on the art, the photos that we had seen.
The animals and stuff,
the animals and stuff. And the people saying the stylized humans, they always say stylized humans because in one of the Nat Geo episodes that I watched, they were saying that they weren't humans. They were going along the line to, like, aliens, but they looked like humans, but not what the normal person looked like. But at the same time, like, maybe if we're coming out of the Ice Age, you know what I mean? We all have those caveman images in our head.
Correct.
Maybe there was different people that came along into this area that did look different.
Right.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, there certainly were.
Yeah, you're in Turkey. Think of all the areas around there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There was two different distinct races of humans at that time that were still around and interacting with each other. So it could make sense.
Yeah, but I think they were, whoever, whatever, they were definitely advanced for this type of building. But then even the idea that it was a gathering place to come and to mingle and to, like,
worship, whatever.
Well, to meet others and not breed with, your own family.
Which is huge in itself.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. That is a massive thing to say, oh, hey, we need to spread the gene pool around a little bit here. Yeah, that's bonkers.
It's crazy.
It really is. And to think how the hell they built this thing, it just does not make sense.
And they only have 5%. Undug. So, like, who knows? Like I said, who knows what else we'll find.
What they have now is beautiful, and I'm excited to see what should come of that.
It is, like, in an article from 2018, they are trying to restore it and open it to tourism, but it's also right around, that troubled area.
Yeah, I was going to say that's southeastern Turkey.
Yep.
So we're right there by Syria and all of that.
Yeah.
And especially with everything going down right now there.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So that's another reason they're like, we want to do this, but to keep tourists safe, we probably shouldn't at this time.
Well, plus, they need to get that site. They need to get it locked down first before they bring people in to ruin it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've got to get as much.
They need to get everything out that they can.
Yeah, they need to get the
people
place
are assholes.
excavated and documented and everything else. I would hope that it takes another 40 years before people can actually go in there and visit that site. As much as I would love to go there.
Oh no, yeah.
I want them to say no people for 40 years until we can get this thing taken care of or whatever. Don't ruin it like we always do,
Yeah. No, we do. We're shitty.
Yeah.
But anyway, so there you go. And thank you, Tony, for the suggestion.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, that was really cool. Go Blecky Tippy. Good times.
Good job.
Thank you. All right, you guys, on that note, should we say bye?
I think so.
All right. Bye.
Wait.
What?
Bye. I'm just kidding. Bye.
Bye.
Jerk.
Hello and welcome to the Murderific True Crime Podcast, featuring your host, Bernadette. Today she is joined by special guest, Rebecca.
Welcome to Murderific Season 2, Episode 12. My guest today is Rebecca. She's been a guest on some of podcasts, to include Betty Broderick, Edgecombe Murders. What else?
I think that's it.
Yeah, my most popular. She's like fan fave.
Like a celebrity at this point, stopped on the street.
But I also wanted to thank my Patreons for the last month. There is Michelle Reck, who is now a Patreon, Karen Parker, and Sharon Jordan. I definitely appreciate any monetary contributions to help my podcast.
At this point, Birdie makes like $2.25 a month.
$2.25.
$2.25
I might make like 25 cents an hour. I don't know. It might be less.
I think it's less.
So the case we're going to cover today is one that has been covered quite a bit, but I think it's pretty interesting and has shaped mass murder for the last, I don't know how many years.
45 years.
And it's the story of Charles Joseph Whitman.
Oh my God, I'm bad at math. It was 1966. So 60 years?
Delete, abort. Covered quite a bit. Mission. So Charles Joseph Whitman was born, I think it's pretty interesting, June 24th, 1941. Mass murder for the last, and he was known as
45
the
years?
Texas Tower Sniper. And it's the story of Charles Joseph Whitman.
Oh my God, I'm bad at math. It was 1966.
Cop killer, ex-Marine,
So,
homegrown from Texas.
60 years?
First killed his mother and wife in their homes with knives. Mission. Next, he went to the University of Texas in Austin. I think it's pretty interesting. And has shaped the observation deck for the last tower. And he was known, began picking off people one by one for 96 minutes. He killed 17 people and one fetus. He also wounded 31 others before he was shot himself by Austin, Texas police officers. And the crazy part about this story is that Charles Whitman actually knew his mental health was poor, and he confessed to his doctor about his homicidal visions before the shootings. He also wrote in his diary about his murderous thoughts.
The shooting took place in 66, and never before had someone tried to shoot strangers on a scale this big. It was the first for our nation.
So it was actually not the first mass shooting. In 1949, there was a shooting in Camden, New Jersey, and a man killed 13 people while he was on a stroll. But
oh, the difference is this was like live, like people knew about it as it was happening, and there's recordings, right?
Right. Like never before had someone tried to shoot strangers on a scale on top of a clock tower. And it was definitely the first time events unfolded live in a new era of mass media. and the world was changed by this event forever.
We're going to talk about Charles's early life. He was born June 24th, 1941 in Lake Worth, Florida. He was the oldest child of 3 sons, and he was born to Margaret Hodges and Charles Whitman Jr. The marriage of the Whitmans' parents was domestically abusive. The neighbors said, "I can't tell you how many times I've called the police before Charlie was beating his wife, kids, or dog." Whitman's dad was an overly strict man that demanded perfection of his children and wife. He was also emotionally and physically abusive to his children.
Sounds fun.
It's like, when you talk about domestic abuse, it's obviously horrible, but then when you talk about people hurting animals, it like crosses another level of depravity.
I think so too. Like, I have all the feels for the dogs.
Like, if I step on my cat's foot, I'm like, oh my God, no.
Yeah, it's one thing to say it, but like to grow up in it, to grow up seeing your mother being abused is pretty sad.
Whitman's father was a firearm collector, shockingly. He made sure to teach his children how to shoot and clean the guns. They went on many hunting trips, and little Charles became an accomplished marksman. His father said of him, Charlie could plug the eye of a squirrel by the time he was 16.
His mother was very religious in the Catholic religion. Oh, shit. And raised her children that way. The boys all had to go to Mass, and all 3 of them were altar boys at the Sacred Heart Roman Catholic Church. You know what? I feel like that's the only name for Catholic churches. It's
Sacred
always
Heart.
Sacred Heart. I don't know why I think that, but...
That sounds right.
When
When
Whitman was young, age 6, he had an IQ test and scored 139. Anytime Whitman did poor in school, his father would physically discipline him. Oh, I would have been in trouble.
Yes.
Whitman joined the Boy Scouts at age 11. He became an Eagle Scout at 12 years old, the youngest of any Eagle Scout at that time. Whitman became an accomplished pianist at age 12 and started a paper route.
I think it's really ambitious. So he is super smart. He's in the Boy Scouts. He's a pianist, and he has a paper route.
At age 12, I was sleeping, going to school, struggling to get C's, and was not a genius hunter or a pianist. And I also did not have a paper route. In fact, at age 13 or 12, I was copying Michael Jackson videos and doing dances. What were you doing?
12? Oh my God. I don't know. Trying to not pretend that I was sexually attracted to anything and going through puberty.
I was covering my boobs with my hands.
Oh yeah, folded arms.
Yeah.
All day.
For a year. So basically, Charles' parents were very, very demanding of him. Charles was a popular student in high school, and everyone knew how smart he was. He also saved enough money from his paper route for a Harley Davidson, which he used on his route from now on. Wait a minute. He rode his motorcycle on his bike route?
He must have had the route for at least 5 years, right? If he could ride a bike, or I don't know if it maybe... You can't be 14 years old riding a Harley Davidson.
Right, yes. This is high school.
Oh, my Lord.
Whitman enlisted in the Marine Corps 1 month before his June 1959 graduation. He graduated 7th out of 72 students. He didn't tell his dad that he joined the Marine Corps. He decided to join because he came home drunk a month earlier, and his dad beat him up and threw him in the swimming pool and tried to drown him.
Whitman left home July 6th. He got an 18-month tour of duty in the Marines at Guantanamo Bay, and his dad still didn't know that he enlisted. I want to talk a little bit how trauma changes a child's brain, which might give a little light into what happened with Charles and why he decided to murder a lot of people. So when a child experiences trauma when they're young, it changes the structure of the brain. So during a traumatic experience, a child's brain is in a heightened state of stress, and fear-related hormones are activated. And even though we experience stress as adults and it's normal, when a child is exposed to chronic trauma like abuse, neglect, obviously seeing domestic abuse, the child's brain remains in the heightened pattern.
Like forever, right? Like
Right.
it's forever altered.
Yeah, it changes the structure and the way that your brain works completely. So if you're in this heightened state, which happens when they experience trauma, it can change the emotional, behavioral, and cognitive functioning of a child's brain. A lot of times their fight or flight is super strong. Like if they experience anything that's a slight stressor, they're going to run or fight. So if you're an adult and you've had a normal life and something bad happens, like something that's a small stressor,
And you just roll with it.
right. But if you have this stress from when you're a child, or you've seen chronic violence, you deal with the stress in a completely different way because you've experienced all of your life and you're constantly heightened. So you're constantly thinking something bad is potentially going to happen.
Anxiety.
Yep.
In the service, he earned a sharpshooter's badge. He achieved 250 possible points on marksmanship tests and did well shooting rapidly over long distances, as well as at moving targets. After the 18 months, he applied for the U.S. Navy in the Marine Corps scholarship program, intending to finish college and be a commissioned officer. Whitman got high scores on his exam and was approved to go to the school in Maryland. He completed math and physics and then got approved to transfer to the University of Texas at Austin to study mechanical engineering. So he's on his way up in the world.
In September 1961, Whitman began the mechanical engineering program at the University of Texas at Austin. He seemed to struggle in college when it came to his grades. His hobbies were scuba diving, gambling, hunting, and karate.
Okay.
In college, he had a few friends. There was an incident when they were caught poaching a deer, and a passerby saw it and reported it. The three were butchering the deer in his dorm.
What?
When the police came, he was fined $100. Today, it would be like $800. Whitman's,
All he was doing was killing a deer in his dorm room. I don't know what the big deal is.
I don't understand. You kill a deer outside and bring it into your dorm and string it up in a small dorm room.
The 1960s were a different time.
Whitman's friends said he was a practical joker, but he also made some scary, chilling statements. Once in 62, Charles and his friends, Francis Shuck Jr., were in a bookstore in the main building of the university, and Whitman said a person could stand off an army from the tower before they got him.
What? Like, he had these thoughts for a long time, obviously. You don't just, like, say things like that.
It's the plan's already in the works if he's looking for areas where you could hold off a large group of people.
And he's young. In February 1962, 20-year-old Charles met Kathleen Lesner in college. She was an education major and 2 years younger than him. He called her Kathy. She was his first serious girlfriend. They dated 5 months only and then got engaged. They married in a Catholic wedding held in Texas in Kathleen's hometown on August 17th, 1962. Whitman's family came to the wedding and drove from Florida to Texas to attend. His younger brother Patrick was his best man. Kathleen's parents and friends all approved of Whitman. Whitman's grades continued to be poor at school, so the Marines actually declined to continue his scholarship. He was ordered back to active duty in February 1963 and went to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, for the remainder of his 5-year enlistment.
So how old is he at this point?
20.
So he was able to go to school for
a couple years.
Got married, and then lost his scholarship, but still has to
finish
in active duty.
Yeah, finish his Marine thing.
Whitman was upset he couldn't finish his college studies, but he was promoted to Lance Corporal. Despite his military career going well, he was gambling. In 63, he was court-martialed for gambling, having a personal firearm on base, threatening another Marine over a $30 loan.
Which would be $200 now.
He also wanted $15 in interest, making it $45. He threatened to kick teeth out of the Marine. He was sentenced to 90 days of hard labor and got 30 days of confinement and was demoted to Lance Corporal E3. From Lance Corporal E3 to private. He began drinking heavily and sleeping with a loaded gun at night.
So awaiting his court-martial in 1963 was definitely a very stressful time for Charles Whitman. He started writing a diary at that time titled Daily Record of C.J. Whitman. He wrote about his love for his wife and how he wanted to be with her and about her virtues, and he also expressed regret about hitting her 2 times. He hated himself for his actions, and he confessed to being mortally afraid of being like his father. It's hard not to be like your parents, you know, as much as you don't want to.
And I feel like once you cross that line of actually being domestically abusive like his dad was, how can you take that back?
Well, he felt bad about it.
You can't gain the trust back of your mate, and he's going to constantly punish himself for being like the person he hates the most.
In his diary, he resolved to be a good husband and not to be abusive. He also wrote about his contempt and hatred for the Marine Corps. His wife at this point suggested that he should seek counseling, and his writings began to grow darker and bleaker.
I feel like he had so much potential by joining the Marines and getting that scholarship, so the Marines really gave him a way out. He was ambitious before, but he had a lot of potential with that, and once that shit the bed. It's funny that he has contempt and hatred for the Marine Corps now. In December 1964, Whitman was honorably discharged from the Corps. He went right back to college at the University of Texas at Austin and got into architectural engineering. He kept switching majors. There wasn't a clear picture of what he actually wanted to do. To support him, his wife worked as a bill collector and then a bank teller. In January 1965, Whitman took a temp job with Central Freight Lines as a traffic surveyor for the Texas Highway Department. His wife worked as a biology teacher at a high school nearby.
So he isn't happy at this point because his dad, who he hates, is helping pay for his education. He's also working menial jobs and not very important jobs, and his wife has to work 2 jobs to support him. And back in the 1960s, this was probably quite a big deal for a man's pride.
Definitely.
In May of 1966, Charles Whitman's mother, Margaret Whitman, said she was leaving her husband because of physical abuse. Charles Whitman dropped everything in his life and drove to Florida to help his mother move to Austin. Whitman was afraid his father would hurt his mother as she was packing, so he called a local cop to stay outside the house while she packed to leave. Back in Austin, Whitman's mom took a job in a cafeteria as a lunch lady. No judging, and moved into her own apartment. Charles' father said at the time he spent more than $1,000 in long-distance calls to his wife and Charles, begging for her to come back and bothering his son to help him make her come back. He was very stressed out by school, his mother, his jobs, and on top of that, Whitman started abusing amphetamines at this time and began getting severe headaches and staying up for days at a time. I mean, he's already fucked up. Just throw some amphetamines into the mix.
I just can't imagine how bad the domestic abuse actually got that she left her husband.
Yeah, back in those days to walk away from a marriage.
Being Catholic, being married for God knows how long.
Right. But
30 years.
All of that fell on Charles because he had to help his mother relocate.
And try to go to school and work and fend off his father.
And doing drugs is stressful, yo. It really is.
Can you tell me any more about that?
No.
Are you pleading the fifth?
Yeah.
On the morning of July 31st, 1966, the day before the shootings, Whitman bought binoculars and a knife from a hardware store. He also bought Spam from 7-Eleven. Spam does not taste like it used to taste.
Are you serious?
Yes. And I will admit that I've had Spam in the last 6 months. You have to take it out and cut it thin and fry it. But it doesn't taste as good as it used to taste.
Oh,
Just telling you. He picked up his wife from her job as a telephone operator before he met his mom for lunch at the Wyatt cafeteria close to the university. At 4 p.m. on July 31st, 66, the same day, he met his wife, Kathy, visited 2 of their close friends, John and Fran Morgan. He left there at 5:50 so Kathy could go to her 6 to 10 p.m. shift.
At 6:45 that day, this is like a huge jump, just hanging out with friends.
Yeah.
But later in the day, Whitman began writing a suicide note on his typewriter. And I'm going to read you some from this typewritten note. And he obviously decided what he was going to do. And there was no going back. So he just snaps. Charles Whitman's suicide note. Sunday, July 31st, 1966, 6:45 p.m. I don't quite understand what it is that compels me to type this letter. Perhaps it is to leave some vague reasons for the actions I have recently performed. I don't really understand myself these days. I am supposed to be an average, reasonable, and intelligent young man. However, lately, I can't recall when it started, I have been a victim of many unusual and irrational thoughts. These thoughts constantly requires tremendous mental effort to concentrate on useful and progressive tasks. In March, when my parents made a physical break, I noticed a great deal of stress. I consulted a Dr. Coach Rum at the University Health Center and asked him to recommend someone that I could consult with about some psychiatric disorders I felt I had. I talked with the doctor once for about 2 hours and tried to convey to him my fears and that I felt some overwhelming violent impulses. After one season, I never saw the doctor again, and since then I've been fighting my mental turmoil alone and seemingly to no avail. After my death, I wish that an autopsy would be performed on me to see if there is any visible physical disorder. I have had some tremendous headaches in the past and have consumed 2 large bottles of Excedrin in the past 3 months. It was after much thought that I decided to kill my wife, Kathy, tonight after I pick her up from work at the telephone company. I love her dearly, and she has been as fine a wife to me as any man could ever hope to have. I cannot rationally pinpoint any specific reason for doing this. I don't know whether it is my selfishness or I don't want her to have to face the embarrassment my actions would surely cause her. At this time, though, the prominent reason in my mind is that I truly do not consider this world worth living in, am prepared to die, and I do not want to leave her to suffer alone in it. I intend to kill her as painlessly as possible. Similar reasons provoked me to take my mother's life also. I don't think the poor woman has ever enjoyed life as she is entitled to. She was a simple young woman who married a very possessive and dominating man. All my life as a boy until I ran away from home to join the Marine Corps. And that's it. Then he starts writing with like a pencil or a pen, and you can't understand any of the writing. So, I mean, that's a lot. He's like, yeah, I'm going to kill my wife. And I killed my mom.
But there isn't any talk of further violence. I mean, there is a lot of violence in here, but there's no talk about the plans to kill at the university.
Not that you can understand. I mean, he does say that my actions are going to cause her embarrassment. So he obviously was thinking about what he was going to do.
Oh, yep, you're right. I do wonder if he would have been able to stay in school and finish his education if all of this could have been avoided. Was that the catalyst that
No, I mean,
tipped his mental illness?
Life like throws shit at you. You can't just be like, oh, that didn't work out, so I'm going to go shoot a bunch of people.
No, but I'm wondering if he was able to just have more of a normal life and not have those big events happen, that he would have been able to not have, obviously, some sort of psychotic break.
Who knows?
We're going to start to talk about the killings. So here's your disclaimer. You're listening to a podcast called Murderific.
So step away from your headphones if you don't want to hear about murder.
Just after midnight, August 1st, Whitman drove to his mom's apartment and killed her. He said that he wanted to put her air conditioning in.
Okay.
There are disputes about how he killed his mom, but it's believed he rendered her unconscious and stabbed her in the heart. So he beat her, strangled her, stabbed her in the heart with a huge hunting knife.
What? That doesn't sound very painless. Oh, she was unconscious, right?
It says he rendered her unconscious and stabbed her in the heart.
Okay.
He left a handwritten note by her body. This is the letter that Whitman left near his mom. To whom it may concern. I have just taken my mother's life. I'm very upset over having done it. However, I feel that if there is a heaven, she's definitely there now. And if there is no life after, I have relieved her of suffering here on earth. The intense hatred I feel for my father is beyond description. He goes on to talk about how his mom gave his father the best 25 years of her life and he humiliated her. He also says, I'm truly sorry that this is the only way I could see to relieve her sufferings, but I think it was best. Let there be no doubt in your mind, I loved that woman with all my heart. If there exists a God, let him understand my actions and judge me accordingly.
What the fuck? Oh, I love her so much.
Strangled and stabbed.
What? Around 2:30 a.m., Whitman then went back to his house at 906 Jewel Street, where he killed his wife by stabbing her 5 times in the heart when she was sleeping. So she probably died pretty fast.
I'm guessing.
He covered her body with sheets and then kept on writing his suicide note with a ballpoint pen, which is not legible. He kept writing, and at some point, friends interrupted him. At 3 a.m., he wrote both dead in large uppercase letters in blue ink. Oh my God. He wrote both dead.
On what?
On his suicide note. Then Whitman finished his note in pen, which we were talking about. He wrote, I imagine it appears I brutally killed both of my loved ones. I was only trying to do a quick, thorough job. If my life insurance policy is valid, please pay off my debts. Donate the rest anonymously to a mental health foundation. Maybe research can prevent further tragedies of this type. If you can find it in yourselves to grant my last wish, cremate me after my autopsy.
I do think it's interesting that his note is very matter of fact.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like a totally crazy person. Like, it doesn't go off on rants or like say anything crazy violent. Like,
right. So he's mentally ill and lucky enough to know that he's mentally ill.
Yeah.
Which a lot of mentally ill people don't have. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they don't have the knowledge to realize that they're mentally ill.
So he knows that he's sick, but can't stop his actions.
Yeah.
The note said, again, nothing about the carnage that laid ahead and said nothing about his future plans.
He left instructions requesting 2 rolls of film be developed, and he wrote a letter to each one of his brothers. Whitman again started writing on his diary on an envelope labeled Thoughts for the Day. His only new words were, I never could quite make it. These thoughts are too much for me. At 5:45 a.m. on August 1st, 1966, Whitman called his wife's work to say his wife was out sick and couldn't work. He also called his mom's work and said that she was out sick 5 hours later. At 6 a.m., he loads 3 rifles, 3 pistols, a sawed-off shotgun, water, gas, 700 rounds of ammo, a hammer, a knife, and a hatchet and a machete into a footlocker.
He also had a compass, a flashlight, batteries, matches, water, rope, food, and he brought a radio up there.
This seems like he's ready for a standoff.
Armageddon. Armageddon's coming.
At 11:35 a.m. on August 1st, 1966, Whitman goes to the University of Texas at Austin. It was humid, 98 degrees in Texas, with a clear plan of what he wanted to do.
So sweltering heat, Texas style. He actually was in a janitor's outfit, and he told the security guard on campus that he was delivering equipment, and he was waved through security. He drags all of his weapons to the entrance of the Texas Tower. So he had to drag all of that stuff in his janitor's outfit.
Yeah, that's so strange.
Well, he got in. He took an elevator to the top of the observation deck. He set up his guns on different parts of the deck, allowing him to shoot in all directions and also to give the illusion of multiple shooters.
These are all the different guns used. A universal M1 carbine rifle, a sawed-off 12-gauge shotgun, a scope Remington, 700 ADL bolt action hunting rifle, a Remington M14, 141, 35 caliber pump action rifle, oh my God, 357 Magnum, S&W model, 19 revolver, 9mm Luger. You can finish with these guns that you have far more knowledge of than I do.
A 9mm Luger, a Gales. I can't even say these. He had a shitload of guns.
There you go.
It was so many.
There's probably at least 10 guns.
What the hell? I guess he liked guns.
We're going to talk about the victims. I think it's important. We're going to talk about all the people that were killed at the University of Texas at Austin. A lot of times you only hear numbers and don't actually hear about the people's lives. So we'll talk a little bit about the victims.
Thomas Aquinas Ashton. Ashton had planned to attend law school, but after President Kennedy's assassination, he was inspired to serve his country in other ways and joined the Peace Corps. Robert Hamilton Boyer. Robert Hamilton Boyer was the third person shot by Charles Whitman on August 1st, 1966. He was 33 years old from Pennsylvania, and he was an up-and-coming mathematician. Thomas Frederick Ekman and baby boy Wilson. Ekman was an active participant in Students for a Democratic Society, an organization that opposed racial discrimination and opposed the Vietnam War. At one of those meetings, he met Claire Wilson, who was 6 months pregnant. They became a couple. Claire and Thomas attended a meeting at the Texas Union on August 1st. They left the session and began walking across the plaza in front of the tower. Whitman shot Claire in her abdomen, killing her unborn baby. Ekman approached her to ask her what was wrong, and then Whitman shot him in the chest, killing him instantly. He was a sharpshooter and shot a woman who was 9 months pregnant in her stomach. He knew what he was doing.
Right.
And did something super evil. Markman Gabor and Marguerite Lampert. They were on a tour of the campus. Around 11:45, the group approached the top of the tower. As they climbed the stairs from the 27th floor to the reception area on the 28th, they noticed that a desk had been pulled across the doorway. Thinking that the janitorial staff was just cleaning the observation deck, they actually squeezed past the desk.
Oh my God.
And then Whitman saw them and shot them both. Karen Griffith was on Guadalupe and 23rd Street when Whitman shifted his attention away from the campus. She was 17 years old and a student at Lanier High School, the same high school that Kathy Whitman, his wife, taught biology at. David Hubert Gumby. David Gumby survived the mass shooting on August 1st, but he died from kidney disease in 2001, and it was ruled a homicide, which is super weird. So he is a victim, even though it was many years later that he died from his injuries. Thomas Ray Carr. Tom Carr was born in Spur, Texas on July 29th and grew up in Fort Worth. He served in the military, and he decided to earn some extra credits by going to summer school in Texas. On August 1st, he was leaving campus after acing a Spanish test and was shot. Claudia Rutt and Paul Bolton Sontag. Claudia Rutt wanted to be a dancer. At 18, she had just graduated from Stephen Austin High School and was about to leave for her freshman year at Texas Christian University. She was loved by everybody. Paul Bolton Sontag was also 18 when he was killed by Charles Whitman. He was a recent graduate of Stephen Austin High School in Austin and was planning to attend Colorado University in the fall. He was also a lifeguard. Roy Del Schmidt. Roy was 29 years old and was working as an electrician for the city of Austin. He was crouching behind a car when someone told them that they were safely out of range. Just as they said that, Whitman fatally wounded him.
Billy Paul Speed was a police officer. He was one of the first to the scene. He loved the outdoors and he was a photographer. He also was in the army. He had a bullet that pierced him in the spine, and he laid there for an hour before he was brought to the hospital and died. Edna Elizabeth Townsley. Edna Elizabeth Townsley was a receptionist on duty at the observation deck at the tower when Charles Whitman came to the campus in 1966. She would have had the day off, but she was covering for a friend. She was mortally wounded. Harry Walchuk was a father of 6. He had a PhD. He was doing research at the library, and he left to get some food. And when he walked on the sidewalk, he was unaware that he was facing straight at the tower, and he was shot in the chest.
Altogether, he killed 17 people and wounded 31 before he was killed himself. So he unleashed 96 minutes of chaos and death. Police were on the scene in 4 minutes. Police, of course, were very unprepared for an event like this. They didn't even own guns. Like, everyone in the police department did not have guns. That's how different of a time it was. Police officers came from Austin Police, University Police, and many bystanders had guns. A different time when everyone had guns in their trucks. They were all unsuccessfully shooting at Charles long distance. Without the armed society helping to keep Whitman back, there would have been many, many more casualties. I'm going to put up a video on murderific.com of actual footage of the shooting. It's totally crazy and scary, and you have to watch it.
The day after the shooting, Charles Whitman's father, who had been despised, addressed reporters in front of his home. I am the father to this young man who has committed a crime of great horror in the country. I hope you all realize this boy was sick.
So the big questions. The real questions. You know, a lot of people don't cover mass shootings on podcasts because they believe that they're glamorizing violence. But
There's
I
nothing
think
glamorous about this.
no. And any person in their right mind isn't going to glamorize Charles Whitman also. I think the facts have to come out and people have to talk about it, and we have to talk about the whys. And just because nothing happens after that doesn't mean that you can just pretend that there are no mass shootings in this country. They should definitely be talked about. So why did he stab his wife and mom with a knife and use guns for everyone else?
It's weird because those are the 2 women that he said he loved the most, but if anybody's familiar with murder, stabbing is one of the most personal, and usually they use the word rage-filled types of murders, but it doesn't sound like he stabbed them a large number of times, right?
No.
And he stabbed them in the heart.
Right, but it's so personal.
Yeah, and what is chilling is that these women, of course, didn't expect it at all, so he's just going in normal, and then they're murdered.
And his wife told him to go see a psychiatrist. But even if you do that, you never think that your husband is going to kill you.
I'm sure he did not share his ideations with her.
And the amphetamines he was taking certainly didn't help his mood swings and violent temper. It may have pushed him into an amphetamine psychosis, during which a person may be a serious social danger. One of his many friends said that he had been consuming uppers like popcorn. So scary.
We're going to talk about his medical history. The police officers investigating the case found that Whitman had seen many university doctors in the year before the shootings, and 5 doctors between the fall and the winter of 1965. They prescribed various medications for him, Valium, amphetamines. I wonder what amphetamines were a prescription for back then.
They gave it to women to lose weight.
Yeah.
They gave it to men to be more productive. I don't think they knew how dangerous it was.
It's just speed, basically, right?
Yeah.
He tells his doctor everything about how stressed he is and his hatred for his dad. Then he went to a psychiatrist and got no prescriptions. He was then prescribed Valium by Dr. Cockrum. What did we say before?
Cockadoodle. Dr. Coke too much? I don't know.
Dr. Cockadoodle too. This psychiatrist advised him to visit a campus psychiatrist. It's sounding very much like he's shuffled around.
You know, there's that gray area where you could go to a psychiatrist and be like, I feel like doing this. These are things that I plan on doing. and then doing them. And there's that whole realm in between where literally nobody can do anything because you can't put someone in jail before they do something. And you could bring them to a psych ward and fill them full of meds, but they still have the same thoughts. So there's like no way to prevent someone from acting on these crazy, crazy thoughts. And it happens over and over and again. And people are like, what can we do? And it's like, there's nothing you can do in that realm.
So here's the thing. Like when you're a psychiatrist, they say if the person is going to do imminent harm to themselves or others, then you have to report. But he's not seeing one psychiatrist regularly that has a rapport with him and knows when he's being serious or when he hasn't slept or when he's very stressed out about this. If you're seeing the same psychiatrist for whatever 6 months, they're going to know what is real and what is not real, but he's only being shuffled around. So if he said that to one random psychiatrist, there's no real reason they would report because they don't know if he's being serious.
He met with Dr. Maurice Dean Heatley, the staff psychiatrist at the University of Texas Health Center one time, and the doctor told him to come back in a week. And basically after that visit is when everything went down. Dr. Heatley's notes said about the visit, quote, "This massive muscular youth seems to be oozing with hostility. That something seemed to be happening to him and he didn't seem to be himself. He readily admits having overwhelming periods of hostility with a very minimum amount of provocation," unquote. He also made a vivid reference to his psychiatrist to thinking about going up on the tower with a deer rifle and start shooting people. So he said, I am thinking about going up to the clock tower to shoot people.
This is where it's a little bit different.
But like he's thinking about it. It's not like he said, I'm going to go do it.
But if psychiatrists also can report, even if the ideation isn't an actual plan.
But who do they report to?
The police.
And then what can the police do?
The
because
police
they
can
haven't
watch them.
Right. That's about it. And
Yes.
I bet the rules were different back then. I bet psychiatrists didn't have to report anything.
I'm not sure what it was like in the late 60s, but yeah, I'm not exactly sure. What is sad about this is none of this stuff is court ordered. So he's looking for help.
Right.
He's not being forced to go anywhere.
Yeah, he's desperate for help.
And that's a man in the late 60s sucking it up and going to different therapists to try to get help. So he was really trying to figure out what was going on with him.
Wow.
We're going to talk about the autopsy.
Whitman had been prescribed drugs and they found dexedrine at his house. But the toxicology was delayed because Whitman had been embalmed on August 1st.
An autopsy was requested by Whitman himself in a suicide note, and his father approved this. His autopsy was performed by Dr. Chinar at a funeral home. Urine and blood were removed to look for amphetamines or other drugs in his system. The doctor found a pecan-sized brain tumor, which he labeled brain cancer, and he had small amounts of necrosis, which meant cell death.
Eventually, it was concluded that it is the opinion of the task force that the relationship between the brain tumor and Charles Whitman's actions on the last day of his life cannot be established with clarity.
He did talk about having raging headaches, right?
Yeah, but that could have been amphetamines also.
Yeah.
So he had brain cancer.
Right.
The end. Brain cancer, amphetamines, maybe psychiatric issues.
I think he had psychiatric issues. It could not have just been cancer.
It seems like it's a bunch
was
of
a storm.
things. Texas Governor John Connally started another task force to look at the autopsy results again. The new commission had neurosurgeons, psychiatrists, psychologists, and the University of Texas healthcare directors.
On August 5th, the commission said their findings were wrong. He had a tumor, which was an aggressive cancer that begins within the brain, and the symptoms include headaches, personality changes, and nausea. Worsening of symptoms is often rapid. Without treatment, people die within 3 months.
What? He was sick.
He's moving from doctor to doctor, and he's only being given